Hi Bethany, Kali and Mike. Thank you for signing up to review my presentation. My topic for the presentation is changes in youth saving means and strategies during the YouLearn program. For the final paper, I really need your feedback on what do you think about my findings, what do you want to know more, and how I should write the analysis. How should I put the quotes in my analysis in an analytical and convincible way? So let me start with a research question. For this final paper, I'm drawing data from the YouLearn program that we all know from this course. The YouLearn program provides training not only in job-related skill, but also life skill, including setting goals and saving. So I expect that the program would encourage youth to save and transform or improve the ways they save. In this section, I focus on how saving strategy evolve over time. My research question is, how does youth practice of savings change during the course of 5 years participating in the YouLearn program? Specifically, I will examine the effect of this program on how youth practice saving and whether their practices change during the time they participate in the program. In addition, I also want to learn how the program affects their decision to choose the saving means. But within my presentation today, I think I don't have time to talk about this. So let's take a look at the literature review. According to Joe in 2015 article, youth in African region is considered a financially vulnerable population and in need of support with enhancing their income as well as change their saving habit. Also from this researcher, theories of saving focus on factors that are individually constructed such as knowledge, financial resources, and family support. However, other articles pointed out the influence of financial programs and services on saving behavior. There are researchers emphasizing the role of financial education to promote savings. Although existing literature has studied both individual and institutional factors that relate to how youth save their money, there has been a limited number of longitudinal qualitative research on how participating in a program affects youth saving and using of money. Next, I will talk a little bit about my data and coding process. So from the data pool that we are provided, I randomly selected one site from Uganda and one site from Tanzania. In total, there were 7 youths from Jinja, Uganda, and 6 youths from Bukoba, Tanzania were selected. Of all the youths from these two sides, the only thing that I focused on when I chose them was that they should be continuously joining the program for 5 years or at least 4 years. Because we don't have much time to look at lecture sample, I just want to make sure the data I have provides enough information for me to analyze. So what took me much time in the coding process was to read through all interviews and memos because I'm not the one who collect the data, so I'm not familiar with the data. Hence, I have to read them carefully. I found reading memos extremely helpful because the memo were written very thoroughly. After reading the interviews and memos to have a sense of what saving means the youth mentioned, I checked the NVivo codebook and then create a list of main codes which are key saving methods for myself. I also create a second list of codes which is about how the program affects their saving habits, but I'm not going to talk about this in this presentation. Then I set up my Microsoft Excel file. As I'm seeking for changes in saving means of each individual youth, I basically code what saving means each youth used in a particular year. During the coding process, I also added codes if I found they could bring some meaning to my findings. The last two steps are looking for pattern and reason of why the pattern emerged. So now we talk about the findings. This table displays the frequency of each saving strategy that individuals listed in each year. These are the saving strategy, and these are the number of youth mentioned those strategy in each year. During the first 2 years of observation, saving in community group and saving at home were the dominant, and it seems that they are the only strategy to save for the youth. Youth started to mention saving through bank and mobile money as a strategy in later years. So my first finding is that youth changed their strategy of saving from basic methods to more complicated and advanced one. As you may know, saving at home is a basic strategy and anyone can do it without training. Hence, I was not surprised that it was a common means of saving for these youth. Saving in community group is more complicated, but the rules are simple and can be learned or can be passed down from a more experienced person. I observed that youth started to mention saving through bank as a strategy only after 2014, 2 years after the training took place. This strategy requires understanding how banking works and hence trusting an institutional to keep their money. Saving in via mobile money is even a newer strategy relatively to banking because it requires understanding how the technology works. I also observed that it is mentioned as a strategy only during the later year. This suggests that the program transformed the saving means of youth by providing at least basic understanding on how some of the newer way and technology works, so they can rely on strategies that are more modern and maybe more secured. The second finding I found is that in the first 2 years, youth only mention saving in community group or at home as their saving strategy. This implies that their total money were put in just one place. In contrast, during the later years, youth tended to mention several ways that they saved. This implies that they learned how to diversify their saving strategy, which means their money are spread in multiple places, and so the risk of losing everything is reduced. Or maybe they can reduce the risk of being able to not control themselves for unplanned withdrawal. The last finding shows youth knowledge of different saving means has been improved. They were able to differentiate saving means and gave reason why they decided to save the way they did. Some youth could also share their thoughts about the advantage and disadvantage of each way of saving. This could prove the effectiveness of the program in terms of providing financial education to the youth. In this slide, I cited some quote from interview of John from Bukoba, Tanzania, and as you can see, his way of saving changed from the beginning of the program until the last years of the program. This one is also from Tanzania, and through his quote, you can have a sense that his knowledge of different way of saving changed, and now he can distinguish what kind of saving strategy he used for which purpose. And the last slide is about the references. Thank you for your time, and I really hope to receive your feedback.